Hi everyone, the last video about this muzzle flash is supposed to be the final one. However, I've been playing in Substance with some nodes and I came up with another stylized texture that I think could be used as a maybe a slightly different muzzle flash, or maybe as an impact. And in this scene I'm actually using it as a part of the impact. It's got very short lifetime. It's got some orientation and scaling applied to it. Of course, it's missing the decal and maybe some sparks or debris coming out of that. But I thought that texture looks very interesting, and you might want to know how to make this one. So before we dive into Substance, I just want to show you the material. It's not complicated at all. It's just a texture. We're using alpha, which is a gradient map, as a smooth step to erode it nicely. And also the system itself, as you can see, there's nothing there. We use the velocity to drive the orientation, as it's a velocity aligned. That's why you see some low numbers here. But that's really it. I thought if you're gonna be following that series and you're gonna actually make the muzzle flash, you might want to create as well the impact, which gonna make this effect completed basically. Obviously, again, add the decal, some debris, some sparks coming out of it. And let's dive into Substance and let's create this another stylized muzzle flash or impact texture. Okay, now in Substance, I'm gonna start with Tile Sampler. I'm gonna pick the discs. And let's go for now with maybe 14 and 8. I'm just gonna go to position random. And let's create mask next for this. What I want to do is just isolate the center. So I'm gonna grab gradient, a histogram scan as well, just to have a bit more control over that mask. Plug it here, and then all we need to do is tweak the mask map threshold, which is here. I'm gonna invert this, and now I'm gonna play with the scale of those discs. Okay, and here what I'm looking for, just to walk you through, I'm looking for long lines like these that are concentrated mainly in the middle bit. So as you can see, this one is slightly off. So I'm just gonna go to position random first, try to find better alignment. I think something like this could work, although this one is offset and ideally needs to be in the middle. I could grab maybe global offset. I'm gonna put maybe -1 here, -2, and I think -1.5 will work. So as you can see, you got plenty of tools to actually make it happen. And with this, I'm just gonna invert it. I'm gonna use trapezoid next and squish the top. I have to disable the tiling on it. And maybe not fully top stretched, maybe more, something like this. And that's going to give us an idea of that impact or muzzle flash, if you like, what it's going to look like. So from here, I think we're getting too many details here. They look also sort of the same in the shape. I think it could be a lot more interesting. So I'm just going to click Tile Sampler once, go to Position Random. And I think something like this looks pretty cool. I'm gonna play with that global offset a bit more, just to center this bit. As you can see, we're getting nice variation rather than them being on a straight line. So let's continue with this and see if we can make it work. I'm gonna get a transform or transformation node here, so I can keep my original shape, and then I can play here and experiment with a couple stuff. I would like to introduce a bit more stylized shape to it, so I'm going to use bevel. However, I need to invert grayscale first before I'm going to use bevel. And I just want to go into that shape a little bit and create that nice gradient. And once I have it, I'm going to invert my grayscale back. I'll make some space here. And with this, I'm going to use a slope blur. I'm going to grab gradient, top to bottom, as our shape is oriented. I'm going to plug this here just to see what it's going to give me. It should stretch my shape downwards. You can use various settings. I think the blur works best for me. I'm gonna ramp up the intensity maybe to 32. And with this, I would like to have a bit more radial blur as well. So I'm gonna get a radial blur grayscale. I'm gonna ramp up the samples. However, I'm just gonna go with a very low value here, something like 0.01. I'm gonna copy this, and actually before I actually put this into here, I'm gonna get a transform and rotate it 90 degrees, so it's oriented like my muzzle flash or impact would be. And in here, I'm just gonna add a minus here and blend those two together. I'm gonna use max. And now just gonna rotate this one and blend it into this shape. I'm gonna try to go with max for now. As you can see, it gives me the blur. However, this shape is overpowering our blur. So I'm just gonna select my transformation, scale it down so it kind of like it fits inside, stretch it out slightly, and also gonna select this and maybe lower the opacity on it, something like 0.7. Once I have this, I'm gonna add slight blur to it so we can blend those two slightly better. And with this, I'm gonna use directional blur, and that should allow us to blend it even further. Just gonna go with max, and it's gonna add a bit more breaks in between, and that's what I'm looking for. And with this, I'm just gonna get a transform, copy and paste it here. I'm gonna stretch those two and blend them back together using the max settings. So with this, I'm just gonna scale it vertically, so I've got like a pointing shape. And with this, let's actually plug it in so we can preview what we're doing. Pull it slightly back. Okay, and finally we can blend it using directional blur. And let's get a gradient map so we can preview how it might look with the colors. This one's going to be yellow or slightly orange. Next, just gonna play with this, gonna be orange, and maybe here I'm just gonna put a red color. You can play with those now to get a slightly better intensity on it. You can also apply glow. I'm gonna pick maybe a orange color. That's the amount, gonna bump this. This one could be around here, and glow size, probably gonna max it to 20. And now might be best time actually to go back and play with those blurs if you're getting too much blur in your texture. So for example, I can ramp this back, but I actually want this to be maybe, let's get this to 10, so they blend slightly better. I can go to this, maybe directional blur. Played, but I think I quite like what I had, which is this. That blur. I think I'm gonna actually zero it or completely avoid this. I'm just gonna skip that blur, keep it here in case I need it somehow later. An additional thing might be to get back our original shape here as well. So just gonna get this before we started doing any blur. So actually this, use blend. I actually want this to go to the top so I can control how much of that original shape I want. That one that can go to the second input. I'm gonna plug this in here. So as you can see, this could be like a super stylized shape. However, I think I could play with that slider or even put it on max so those two can blend together. Something like this could work. The only issue I have, I would like to probably move that shape slightly. So I'm going to get a transformation tool, plug it here, preview my glow, and also select once my transformation and move it back slightly. Maybe even scale it down so it fits inside of that blurry shape I have. If it's too strong, you can play with the opacity. Depends really what you want. I kind of like this. I like the breaks in between, and that could work if next if you want to actually play with that shape and try to get something that looks better. Might be a good idea to go to the tile sampler, and let's see what's going to happen if we're going to add a bit more of those. We're going to completely break it, but for example, if we're going to play with various settings, we might get a really cool shapes that we could use for our impact. But I feel like our initial settings were the best, so I think maybe not a good idea to play with the amount, but maybe with the size. So let's see. I quite like this. It gives us a lot more details, I think, and might be very useful for the impact. I'm looking for something that it's a fairly symmetrical, so it doesn't look too different, especially if you're gonna spawn a couple of those textures. Another thing what you could do actually is to play with that mask map threshold. As you can see, you're gonna get having some really cool impact shapes there. I like this. Got many breaks between that texture. It's gonna give us a bit more data here. I'm not sure if I want it. Okay, so I think that's our shape. And next, if I'm gonna drag another node here, I'm gonna use threshold to see how it disappears. So I don't think that looks too bad, but if we want to manipulate this further, we can probably multiply this. So I'm just gonna get blend with a multiply option. I'm gonna create my own gradients. I'm gonna get a gradient from left to right ideally. So this with a rotation. I'll plug it here. And let's test this now. So as you can see, we are getting slightly better results in my opinion. It kind of goes from left and right. If you're having like a straight line, because of that, you might want to apply some warp to it, like this, and then get pedaling noise. I'm going to disable tiling and scale down my pedaling noise to maybe something like this. Keep that intensity maybe slightly higher. I'm going to go maybe with 5. Plug it in here. And now that should get rid of your straight line if you are having one. I'm gonna go maybe with 0.7 for the opacity, test my threshold again. I think it looks pretty cool. And final bit, I'm just gonna get RGB merge. Oh, alpha merge. And that'll be my alpha. I'm actually not gonna use it as an alpha. I'm gonna use this for the smooth step. For the erosion. It could be as alpha as well, but I think having this as a smooth step erosion in Unreal Engine will work better. Alright, I'm going to export this back into Unreal Engine and let's preview it, how it looks instead of my original texture. Okay, so now in Unreal Engine, I've replaced that texture that we just made in the material. The only thing I had to tweak was the smooth step curve. Previously it was like this with my original texture, so let me preview. With this, we barely having any debris or shrapnel there. However, if I'm gonna tweak this curve like this, it's a lot more visible and still works. For me, there are obviously details missing that I mentioned before. Maybe small decal there might be useful. Some sparks as well, just to have a tiny little details, and maybe some smoke. And we've done this glow, so we might just copy that and see how that might look as with the glow as well. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that series. This is the last video, I promise, in that series. And I hope you can implement the rest of it with that muzzle flash, because again, having the everything together like a decal, some small details, maybe some smoke coming from it as well, that's gonna make this effect look complete. All right, thank you so much.